Most people think search and rescue is about finding people. The ones who do it long enough know the job is actually about something else entirely. It is about deciding what stays found and what stays hidden. 3 SAR officers found something in the field that their training had no protocol for, and in every case, the protocol that did exist was not theirs. In the third account tonight, a 20-year veteran describes a coordinate line in the deep backcountry where the Forest Service radio goes silent and a different agency takes over. He calls it the 3-mile rule. He did not name it. He just learned to follow it. This is Obscure Nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. The grid did not exist on his GPS. That was the first thing wrong. Brennan had been a volunteer SAR lead in the Cascades for 6 years, and he had never been assigned a search grid that his GPS unit could not locate. The device acknowledged the coordinates. It simply had no terrain data for them. Just a blank section of the map where the topography should have been. He flagged it before deployment. His supervisor told him the blank was a mapping update lag and to proceed on foot using the physical terrain description in his briefing document. Brennan proceeded, October 14, 2022. The missing subject was a solo climber named Petra, 29 years old, experienced alpine climber, last confirmed position at the 4,000-foot elevation mark on a route she had completed twice before. Her emergency beacon had pinged once at 6:17 a.m. and then gone completely silent. No malfunction alert, no low battery signal. Just one ping, and then the specific silence of a device that was no longer transmitting. Brennan reached the 4,000-foot mark at approximately 10 a.m. He found her climbing bag sitting on a flat-topped stump at the edge of a small clearing. Not dropped, not left mid-movement the way gear gets left when something goes wrong fast. Packed. Fully packed, straps buckled, lid closed, sitting upright on the stump with her ID wallet clipped to the exterior loop, the way someone clips it when they want to be identified quickly. The way you pack a bag when you are finished with a trip and leaving it somewhere for someone to collect. The way you pack a bag when you know you're not going to carry it out yourself. Brennan radioed the coordinates. Base responded within 30 seconds. The voice on the radio was not his usual base coordinator. Different person. Calm. Deliberate. The specific tone of someone reading from a prepared response rather than reacting in real time. The voice told him to ignore the bag and move to Grid B. Brennan said he was standing next to the missing subject's packed gear with her ID attached, and he was not moving to Grid B without logging the find. The voice said, "Brennan, you are currently in a non-documented zone. Leave the gear. Return to base immediately." He had never heard the phrase non-documented zone in 6 years of SAR work. It is not in any protocol document he had ever been trained on. It is not terminology that exists in the Mount Rainier National Park SAR Operational Manual. He stood at that stump for approximately 2 minutes. Then he took a photograph of the bag with his personal phone, not his radio, his personal phone, and walked to Grid B. When he returned to base, there was no record in the incident log of his radio transmission from the 4,000-foot clearing. No record that he had reported finding gear. No record of the response he had received. The photograph is still on his phone. Petra has never been found. The Mount Rainier incident log for October 14th, 2022 lists the search as concluded with subject unlocated. No mention of gear found at elevation. No mention of a non-documented zone. No mention of the voice on the radio that was not his base coordinator. He told me, "I have run over 40 searches in those mountains. I know what a packed bag means. Someone packed that bag knowing they were leaving it. The question I have never been able to answer is whether Petra packed it herself, or whether something packed it for her. A packed bag with ID attached in a zone that does not exist on any GPS map. A voice on the radio he had never heard before. A log entry that contains none of what he reported. Subscribe to Obscure Nights right now. Every account we cover exists because someone decided the silence was worse than the risk of speaking. We are building something here that matters. Hit subscribe. Story 2 is the one with the radio that should not have been there. Bear stopped at the cave entrance and started whimpering. Not barking. Not the alert behavior of a dog that has found a scent and is communicating a find. Whimpering. The specific sound a trained working dog makes when something has crossed a threshold the animal cannot process professionally. In 4 years of working with Bear, I had never heard him make that sound on a search. Kalen here. K9 Handler, Ozark National Forest SAR Unit, September 7th, 2020. We were in the Gray Ridge section looking for a 6-year-old boy named Elliot who had separated from his family at a campsite 2 days earlier. Bear had been tracking Strong for 3 hours. The kind of confident, continuous pull that tells a handler the subject is close and the scent is fresh. Then the cave entrance. Bear sat down at the mouth of it and whimpered and would not go further. I tried the forward command twice. He did not move. I have worked with dogs long enough to know the difference between a dog that has lost a scent and a dog that has decided not to follow one. Bear had decided. Then I heard the boy's voice, coming from inside the cave. A child calling for his mother. The specific broken rhythm of a child who has been crying for a long time and is running out of energy for it. Elliot's name and physical description matched the voice exactly in terms of age range and distress level. I went in without Bear, headlamp on, radio in hand, moving carefully into a cave system that was narrow enough to require turning sideways in sections. 20 meters in the passage opened into a small chamber. I swept my headlamp across it. No Elliot. What I found was a SAR radio sitting on the cave floor, powered on. The voice, Elliot's voice calling for his mother, was coming from the radio's speaker, same model as the radio I was carrying. Forest Service issue, the specific model our unit used. I stood in that chamber for a long moment with my headlamp on the radio and the voice coming out of it. Then I picked it up and walked out. When I brought it back to the surface, my supervisor was waiting at the cave entrance. He took the radio from me with a gloved hand. Not a bare hand, a gloved hand, the way you handle evidence, and told me that Elliot had been found 10 miles away 2 hours ago and was safe. I asked why nobody had told me over the radio during the 3 hours I had been tracking. He said, "Your radio wasn't on, Kalen. It hasn't been on for hours." I looked at the radio in my hand. The transmission light was active. It had been transmitting the entire search. He took that radio too. I filed an incident report describing what I had found in the cave. The report was accepted, logged, and assigned a case number. When I requested a copy of the report 3 weeks later, I was told the case number did not exist in the system. I still think about the voice on that radio, about how it knew Elliot's specific distress pattern, about what recorded it, about when, and about why it was waiting in a cave in a section of forest that my dog, who has never refused a trail in 4 years, decided he was not going in. "20 years in search and rescue teaches you 2 things. The first is that the wilderness has rules that have nothing to do with the maps. The second is that the people who made the maps already know that. Victor, 20-year SAR coordination veteran. Some of you heard my account on this channel before. I am back because what I told you last time was the beginning of what I know. This is more of the middle. There is a protocol in certain sections of National Forest backcountry that no official SAR training document will acknowledge. The people who work those sections long enough learn it the way you learn anything that nobody will teach you directly, by watching what happens when someone does not follow it. It is called the 3-mile rule. Not officially. There is no official name because it does not officially exist. But every SAR coordinator who has worked the deep backcountry long enough knows what happens at the 3-mile perimeter in certain designated zones. The Forest Service radio goes silent. Not static, not interference. Silent. A different kind of silence than equipment failure. The specific silence of a frequency being deliberately cleared. And a different agency takes over. August 22nd, 2021. I was coordinating a search for a missing day hiker in a section of Shoshone National Forest that I had worked before and knew had one of these perimeters. The hiker, a man in his 50s named Gerald, had been reported overdue by his wife at 6 p.m. Last known position put him inside the 3-mile boundary. I deployed a 2-person team to the perimeter edge with instructions not to cross it. Standard protocol for that zone as I understood it from 20 years of unwritten rules. The team radioed me at 8:43 p.m. They had visual on Gerald. He was sitting on a flat rock approximately 40 meters inside the perimeter. Physically appeared unharmed. He was facing northeast and waving slowly at something in the air in front of him. Not at the team, at something they could not see. I told the team to maintain visual and hold position. 11 minutes later, a vehicle arrived on a trail that should not have been wide enough for a vehicle. Black. No agency markings. 2 individuals in gray uniforms exited. No flashlights. No radios visible. They walked directly to Gerald's position without hesitation. No searching, no scanning. The specific directness of people who already knew exactly where he was. They walked him into the trees. The team lost visual within 30 seconds. Gerald was returned to the trailhead at 11:15 p.m. that night. He was physically unharmed. He had no memory of the period between approximately 3 p.m. and 11 p.m. His wife confirmed he seemed disoriented for several days afterward, but recovered fully. I filed no report on what my team observed at the perimeter. The unwritten rule about the 3-mile boundary includes a corollary that has also never been documented. What happens inside it stays inside it. I am telling you this now because 20 years is long enough to understand that the rule exists to protect something that is not the hikers who wander into those zones. The maps are not missing pieces because they are old. They are missing pieces because those pieces do not belong to us anymore. Whatever is in those zones has been there long enough that the people who manage the land around them have accepted it as a permanent condition. They did not build a protocol because something new appeared. They built a protocol because something old refused to leave. And the 3-mile rule is not a boundary for what is inside it. It is a boundary for us. A coordinate line where the radio goes silent and a different agency takes over. 2 people in gray who walked directly to a man they should not have been able to find. And a protocol built not to protect the people who wander in, but to protect what is already there. Subscribe to Obscure Nights right now. Every video we build goes somewhere the maps do not show. Hit subscribe and stay with us, because next week we follow the coordinate, and what is at the end of it has been waiting a very long time. 3 SAR officers, 3 encounters that their training had no answer for. But here is what their training did teach them, and what every person who hikes or camps in National Park backcountry should know before they go in. File a detailed trip plan before every backcountry entry. Not a vague description. Specific trailhead, specific route, specific campsites, specific return time. Leave it with someone who will act on it if you do not return. Rangers cannot search for you efficiently if they do not know where to look. Carry a personal locator beacon and know how to use it. A phone has no signal in the deep backcountry. A PLB transmits directly to search and rescue satellites regardless of cell coverage. It costs less than a good pair of boots, and it is the single most effective piece of safety equipment a solo hiker can carry. If your tracking dog stops and refuses to continue on a trail, listen to the dog. Animals register environmental changes that human senses cannot detect. A trained working dog refusing a trail is information. Treat it as such. And if you are ever in the backcountry and your radio or phone goes completely silent, not static, completely silent, turn around. Do not investigate. Do not approach whatever is ahead. Turn around and walk out the way you came. Whatever is at the 3-mile line has a protocol. Make sure yours is to not be there when it activates. This is obscure nights, where the cases nobody talks about get told the way they actually happened. Subscribe, because next week the coordinate points somewhere, and we are going to follow it. Good night.